This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Consumer prices rose 0.4% last month, less than expected. This could make it harder to figure out how much higher, how much faster interest rates may go up. Here's why. Today's news could indicate that the threat of big new inflation is cooling. Worries about possible renewed inflation are what have been edging interest rates higher. CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady spent the day checking his sources and reports there are still plenty of worries about inflation, especially because wholesale prices increased so much last month.
While today's figures show inflation moderating a bit, motorists were hit with the biggest increase in gasoline prices in months, up 1.7%. And economists say last week's huge jump in wholesale prices could keep hitting consumers in the pocketbook.
We're going to see even more rapid increases in consumer prices a month or two down the road.
There will be higher prices in supermarkets, higher prices for cars, higher prices for houses.
President Bush called the figures good news.
The consumer price index was much better than anticipated.
Grocery store food prices rose more slowly last month. So did transportation and entertainment. Still, after 4.4% inflation all of last year, consumer prices this year are rising at an annual rate of 6.1%. Right now, the only way to fight inflation is to raise interest rates to cool off the economy. But as a group of senators recently warned President Bush, if the Federal Reserve raises rates too high, there could be grave risks.
If the Fed continues to tighten, driving up interest rates, we could slow down and stop this economy, and that would be a very, very bad thing.
It would be especially bad for the millions of Americans with adjustable rate mortgages, consumer loans, and credit cards. Americans like schoolteacher Chuck Dribbin and his family, who know that monthly payments on their adjustable rate mortgage soon will be soaring.
What happens is you start cutting back on your dreams. You start cutting back on those future goals.
They'll have to cut back on autos, on housing, vacations, appliances, and as they cut back, that will precipitate a recession.
While that's not certain, economists warn that unless the economy slows down, inflation could speed up even more. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
Worsening inflation and rising interest rates can only deepen the crisis of America's bleeding savings and loans. The S&Ls today confirmed record losses last year. More about it from Bruce Morton.
Grim news from the savings and loan industry. 1988 losses, $12.1 billion, the worst year since they started keeping records. Where do the S&Ls go from here?
We're hopeful that the losses that are accruing on a quarterly basis are moderating somewhat.
That's the view from the industry. Others disagree.
It is only going to get worse and worse. Every number we hear is a new signpost of bad news these days.
The losses are because some savings and loans made bad loans or were badly or crookedly managed, and because government regulators didn't find that out for years.
What we're seeing now really is the recognition of embedded losses, losses that were put onto the books years ago.
The government is bailing out the troubled S&Ls so depositors' money is safe, but the taxpayers are footing the bill. What does the red ink mean for them?
The average consumer, as a taxpayer, is going to look at these numbers and say, uh-oh, taxes are going to go up.
And the S&Ls face another problem. They make a lot of their money on mortgage loans. But if there's a new burst of inflation, as many economists fear, the interest S&Ls have to pay their depositors will shoot up, and they'll lose money on those mortgage loans.
Higher rates are a worry, but not a catastrophe if the rates don't go up too much or stay up for long periods of time.
Rising interest rates are certainly going to make the situation worse. At the moment, about two-thirds of the industry is profitable. That should drop to about half the industry within 6 months.
How much trouble the S&Ls are in depends on how the economy does this year, but nobody is suggesting today's numbers added up to good news. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
The Supreme Court issued its first decision today on testing for drug and alcohol abuse among Americans who work for the government. Actually, there were two decisions, and both were in favor of such testing. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver has more on these decisions and the fight against drug abuse.
The court ruled that there is a compelling national interest to force workers in certain sensitive government jobs to submit to drug tests. upheld mandatory random urine tests for customs employees who carry weapons or who work in drug enforcement, and similar tests for railroad workers involved in accidents.
It's a heartening result for those of us interested in furthering the battle against drug abuse in the United States.
Employees argued that drug tests violate the Fourth Amendment right to privacy, amounting to unreasonable, warrantless searches with no probable cause. The court acknowledged that drug testing involves interference with individual liberty. But Justice Anthony Kennedy cited the veritable national crisis caused by smuggling of illicit narcotics and asserted that the government has a legitimate right to demand that certain personnel are physically fit and have unimpeachable integrity and judgment. Still, several justices warned against overreacting to the drug problem. Thurgood Marshall admonishing, history teaches that grave threats to liberty often come in times of urgency, when constitutional rights seem too extravagant to endure.
People should not have to sacrifice their Fourth Amendment or privacy rights on the altar of, expediency in this particular war on drugs.
Drug testing critics did have some consolation. The court seemed to suggest that it would not uphold the broad random testing for most government employees proposed by the Reagan administration.
I don't believe that random testing or urinalysis testing without reasonable cause or reasonable suspicion is going to be allowed by this court or any other court.
That issue is now pending in the lower courts, and the Supreme Court will undoubtedly spend many years defining under exactly what circumstances employees may be forced to take drug tests. Rita Braver, CBS News at the Supreme Court.
The House gave approval today to a bill that makes another effort to protect government workers who blow the whistle on waste, fraud, or abuse. This bill was passed by the Senate last week and now only needs President Bush's signature, which is expected. Still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Mark Phillips on a multi-billion-dollar missile that failed, and correspondent Peter Van Sant on the man with the most hits and the question of did he make an error.
If they could see you now out on a punching cruise, eating fancy food and doing what you choose, I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Oh, my sinuses.
Sinus headaches are worse in the morning.
Gotta be sharp today.
During the night, pain and pressure build up. That's why you need maximum strength Sinade. Sinade is so strong, it handles even morning sinus headaches, but it won't make you drowsy.
All set to go?
Yep, up and running. Good morning, this is your AMD.
Maximum strength Sinade, strong enough for even morning sinus headaches.
Ordinary windows versus windowscaping. Windows, windowscaping. Windows, windowscaping. See the windowscaping experts only at the Pella Window Store.
When the burning, itching, and soreness of hemorrhoids flare up, Tux medicated pads give you soothing, cooling relief on contact. For hemorrhoid flare-up, get Tux from Park Davis.
The White House announced today that President Bush will meet the leaders of Egypt, Israel, and Jordan separately over the next 6 weeks, trying to advance the Middle East peace process. A spokesman refused to speculate on whether President Bush will ask Israel to open talks with the PLO, as the United States has already done. In Israel today, Palestinian violence erupted in Tel Aviv, which up to now had been largely untouched by the Arab uprising. Veteran correspondent Richard Roth is on the scene.
A Palestinian man shouted, "God is great," and lunged with a commando knife at pedestrians on a busy Tel Aviv street. A passerby snapped photos as police shot and subdued the attacker, identified as a 29-year-old from a Gaza refugee camp. 2 of the victims are hospitalized. A third, a 70-year-old man, is dead. All were Israeli Jews. The Palestinian uprising that usually seems a world away from this city today was just down the street. The Prime Minister called it one small, sad example of provocation facing the whole country.
And what can we do against such provocations, if not to defend ourselves?
The defense of Israel, including Israel's image abroad, has been the theme of a carefully planned meeting hosted by Shamir's government this week. A solidarity conference. 1,500 Jewish leaders from around the world called to Jerusalem to show support for Israel, for its leaders and their policies, including the ban on talks with the PLO.
It is a one-way street to destabilize the entire region. It is, in the final analysis, a one-way street to war.
The streets went two ways in the occupied territories today, the Army's way or the Arabs. This, as a government intelligence report leaked to the press, concluded the PLO is Israel's only partner for meaningful peace talks. Israeli television tonight took special note of what's seen here as new pressure from American Secretary of State James Baker, who again today hinted that direct talks between Israel and the PLO may be inevitable. The sixth round of U.S. talks with the PLO is scheduled for tomorrow in Tunisia. Richard Roth, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
In southern Lebanon, 3 Irish soldiers serving with the UN peacekeeping force were killed today when their truck ran over a landmine. And in Beirut, 8 more people were reported killed as Christian and Muslim forces traded artillery fire for a 14th day. Muslim forces have now blockaded the Christian enclave, cutting off all movement between the two parts of the city. One of the things we try to do on this broadcast is cover underreported stories in faraway places. This is an example. The tiny African nation of Malawi appealed for international help today because it needs so desperately food, clothing, and shelter for an estimated 115,000 people. They've been left homeless by earthquakes, a cyclone, and floods all in the last month. Among the victims are refugees from the civil war in neighboring Mozambique. Our Southern African correspondent Martha Teichner went to Malawi for this report.
As the floodwaters recede, the extent of the devastation is obvious. This lake of rushing water was dry land a week ago. 5,000 people lived here. Now there is only one house left. This man managed to find his front door, that's all. The flood left more than 100,000 people homeless and hungry. It came unexpectedly in the middle of the night and swept through southern Malawi. Food shipments are reaching flood victims in a trickle because bridges along the only road were washed out and had to be rebuilt. The railroad line has been cut. The flood is the latest in a series of disasters to befall Malawi: an earthquake, tornadoes, crops destroyed by insects. Malawi's collective woes have added up to the largest relief project in Africa for the Red Cross.
1,100,000 people in a nation of 7 million people. You know, 1/7 of the population. It's a crisis.
Malawi's succession of crises have gone largely unreported in the rest of the world. Foreign journalists ordinarily are banned by the country's secretive right-wing government. Landlocked with few resources, it has the 4th highest infant mortality rate in the world. More than half the people are illiterate. AIDS is also a serious problem. A flood was the last thing Malawi needed. It is a country of calamities, one of the poorest in the world, barely able to feed its own people, and burdened with 650,000 refugees as well. A human flood. 20,000 Mozambican refugees a month have risked their lives to cross the border, escaping brutal civil war and starvation at home. Windo Katanga dragged himself 25 miles to get here. Malawi is one of the only countries willing to take Mozambique's refugees, but the cost of its compassion is enormous to its own people. With little to protect it from the ravages of war and the harshness of nature, Malawi waits for aid from the West to save it from becoming another African wasteland. Martha Teichner, CBS News, Bangula, Malawi.
A recent test compared the Toyota Tercel stick shift, the Hyundai Excel... But we made it tougher on the Justy, because you don't shift the Justy, and its ECVT automatic makes it accelerate and pass quicker than the Hyundai and the Toyota. Proof that Subaru can beat the competition with one arm tied behind its back.
Get $500 back on a Subaru Justy or 4.9 financing through May 2nd.
Since the turn of the century, there have been 16 presidents and one original Ben Gay. There have been 580 Nobel Prize winners and one original Bengay. There have been 12 men who've walked on the moon, and one original Bengay. But now we're introducing a different formula, Bengay. Bengay warming ice. It goes on cool, then warms as its scent disappears. For fast relief of minor arthritis pain, warming ice. For Bengay, it's a once-in-a-lifetime introduction.
This Easter, Baskin-Robbins is rolling your favorite flavors into an irresistible parade of Easter Bunny ice cream cakes.
Well, hello, you sweet thing, you.
Get hopping to Baskin-Robbins and order yours today.
Tell them that you love them.
The Tulip Bowl Bouquet from Teleflora. Easter flowers and something worth keeping.
Tell the flora.
To send one anywhere, call your local florist.
President Bush announced a controversial decision late today. He says he's giving the green light to manufacture of an advanced jet fighter with Japan in Japan. The fighter called the FSX. President Bush said his decision involved certain clarifications and he hasn't heard back from Japan yet. This aircraft would be an updated version of the U.S. F-16 fighter. It will combine U.S. and Japanese technology. The U.S. Navy conducted its first sea test today of an important, expensive weapon, the Trident II missile. The result? The weapon flopped. An unexplained malfunction and explosion. Mark Phillips has details.
It was a crucial test for the Navy's new Trident II missile system. The submarine USS Tennessee was cruising submerged several miles east of Cape Canaveral, Florida. A Soviet vessel was in the area to watch. The $23.7 million missile broke the surface and its first stage ignited as planned. But the missile immediately pinwheeled out of control. It self-destructed after only 4 seconds of flight. The first sea launch of the Trident II was a spectacular failure. The missile carried only dummy warheads and the explosion caused no damage to the Tennessee.
It's to be expected in missile development. You cannot run any kind of high technology program without a relatively high probability of failure.
The Navy says today's mishap followed a series of successful launchings. All previous tests were from land. Although critics of the Trident II program point to 3 earlier failures and say the new system should be canceled before more money is spent on it.
It is one of the most problem-laden of the weapon systems that they've had. A 25% or more failure rate is not a good management system.
The $51 billion Trident II program is designed to replace the Trident I system now deployed. 11 submarines would carry the missiles, which are supposed to be capable of delivering warheads more than 6,000 miles to within 400 feet of their targets. This would enable them to hit and destroy enemy missiles in hardened silos. The Navy had planned 10 more undersea firings in the next few months. That program and the plan to have the Tennessee equipped with 24 new missiles and on patrol later this year may now be delayed. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
The U.S. Army's chief flight official, Major General Ellis Parker, today rejected the idea of suspending, at least temporarily, the use of night vision goggles. Those goggles are blamed in part for the recent rash of military helicopter crashes. General Parker testified at a congressional hearing today. More about that hearing and those helicopter crashes from CBS News Pentagon correspondent David Martin.
Helicopters are vital to modern military operations, moving men and equipment rapidly over the battlefield. But in recent days, they have taken a terrible toll of American lives. 19 men killed in this crash of a Marine helicopter during an exercise in Korea. 15 dead in Arizona. Many of the crashes are the tragic result of one of the military's proudest boasts.
We go to great efforts to make our training realistic, to try and replicate the fog of war.
For helicopter pilots, that frequently means flying under cover of darkness with the aid of night vision goggles, which turn the world an eerie green. Today, a congressional committee opened an investigation into night training accidents.
Please explain to the committee the enormous increase, the escalation during the last 2 years.
We have no choice but to fight at night. We must train as we will fight. I think we're doing that.
But has the training become too much like war?
A particular Nighthawk training took place during driving rainstorms under some of the most stressful of conditions. Worse yet, we flew 3, 4, and 5 hours every night.
If our training is so realistic that it kills him, then there will be no meaningful training or experience gained.
In addition to realistic, perhaps too realistic training, The military is building sophisticated, perhaps too sophisticated helicopters designed to survive on a modern battlefield. Internal Army documents show that during a recent exercise, the $13 million Apache helicopter was ready only 40% of the time. One helicopter commander wrote, "The Apache has a long way to go to make it on the battlefield."
To survive on a modern battlefield, they've got to be that way. And we just have to make sophisticated systems easier to maintain and more reliable.
As one member of the committee pointed out today, the military can't control war, but it should be able to control its own training and equipment. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
A Brazilian cargo plane crashed into a crowded slum today just a mile short of the airport in Sao Paulo. The 3 crewmen of the Boeing 707 were killed, along with at least 15 people on the ground. Dozens more were injured. The plane had radioed the control tower asking for an emergency landing just before the crash. Cause of the crash still not known.
Now that you're 40, would it kill you to eat Kellogg's 40-plus bran flakes?
Dad, this stuff's healthy.
After 40, that stuff's no better than elephant puffs.
Kellogg's 40-plus bran flakes. For you after 40. Because if you need it, it's got the maximum level of fiber plus iron in one cereal.
I hate it when you're right. I've waited 40 years to hear that.
Kellogg's 40-plus bran flakes. After 40, everything else is just kid stuff.
Fishing in America. It ain't what it used to be. In fact, the only thing that hasn't changed in 40 years is that Zebco is still America's choice for pros to beginners. From dependable Zebco reels and rods, Pro Staff, and precision-engineered Quantum, to tough Motor Guide trolling motors. Thanks to Zebco, fishing is better than ever. Zebco, one of the companies of Brunswick Corporation, sharing the heritage of being #1.
What do more drivers say after an oil change with Pennzoil at Jiffy Lube?
I can drive for miles and miles. I can drive for miles and miles. I can drive for miles and miles and miles and miles.
Every 3,000 miles, quality Pennzoil, lube, fluids, 10 minutes. Jiffy Lube, we give more cars more miles and miles.
A jailed killer whose case was featured in a documentary called The Thin Blue Line was to leave a Dallas prison tonight, but only after an excruciating series of last-minute battles between prosecutors and defenders. James Hattori is covering this complicated case.
For more than 12 years, convicted murderer Randall Dale Adams proclaimed his innocence from behind prison bars, including 2 years on death row. Tonight, he posted bond and will walk free.
I will be home soon. Where this evening, I don't know, but it won't be Dallas County Jail.
Well, I don't think Randall Dale Adams ought to be on the street. I think he's under indictment for murder in Dallas County. That indictment is still pending.
An appellate court threw out Adams' conviction earlier this month after a movie shed new light on the 1976 murder of a Dallas police officer. Adams' attorney alleges prosecutors withheld evidence and that major witnesses now contradict their stories, including one who all but confesses to the murder and says Adams wasn't even at the scene of the crime.
I've sat here and told you that the man's innocent. What more do you want?
Adams' release was delayed by some 11th hour legal maneuvering by the Dallas County District Attorney's Office, first attempting to double the amount of Adams' bond, then trying to get the judge in the case disqualified.
They are challenging the integrity and the character of a good and honest man because he won't play their game.
Late today, the motion to remove the judge was denied. Adams may be out, but he's not free of the charges yet. The district attorney is reviewing the case and may well try Adams again. James Hattori, CBS News, Dallas.
The Environmental Protection Agency is recommending a ban on the use of the insecticide aldicarb on potatoes and bananas. The EPA says aldicarb presents a health risk to children and infants. The recommendation must be reviewed by a scientific advisory board before it can officially take effect.
Reach for a better tasting Raisin Bran.
Reach for the stripes, come on, reach for the stripes and get the best taste Raisin Nut Bran.
Today, people are reaching past Kellogg's and Post for the best-tasting Raisin Bran. Raisin Nut Bran has juicy raisins rolled in crushed almonds and big, crispier flakes.
Reach for the stripes, come on, reach for the stripes and get the best taste, Raisin Nut Bran.
Reach for America's best-tasting Raisin Bran.
If you run your own business, you've got to watch every dollar.
Well, I'm glad you like our figures. Any other questions?
How far will your business get on a dollar's worth of AT&T?
On the 21st, we can do that. Sure, we can do that.
Not as far as it'll go on U.S. Sprint.
We got it. That's terrific.
Get up to 10 to 17% more out of each and every dollar with our 100% fiber optic watch lines for your business. Call Sprint now and talk with the best.
See the colors of Puerto Rico, colors, colors everywhere. Puerto Rico, the shining star.
Not this much, not this much, just this much. New Advanced Formula Kaopectate works fast to relieve diarrhea and cramps, and it tastes better too. New Advanced Formula Kaopectate, more than ever, the diarrhea specialist.
It is not the kind of publicity Major League Baseball's all-time leader in hits and games played is used to. Cincinnati Reds manager Pete Rose is awaiting a decision that could, underscore the word could, bring his illustrious career to a downbeat conclusion. Correspondent Peter Van Sant reports from the Reds' Florida spring training base.
Baseball legend Pete Rose was a sure bet to draw dozens of reporters today as his Cincinnati Reds played the St. Louis Cardinals. Rose is facing the greatest challenge of his storied career. Reports that the baseball commissioner's office is investigating serious allegations, which sources say focus on Rose's gambling activities.
I've seen him at the dog track. I've been with him at the dog track and the racetrack, and that's all. So I guess we're just going to have to wait to see if there's any fire where the smoke is.
Rose refused to talk to reporters today, but he did give a brief statement to Cincinnati Reds radio announcer Marty Brenneman.
We are cooperating with the commissioner's office, and we hope that everything gets taken care of real fast before opening day so we can get down to business, and business is winning the National League West.
He seemed to be in a good mood. I mean, I've been around him for 16 years now. I don't, maybe a little bit more somber than usual.
Pete Rose guaranteed his place in baseball's Hall of Fame in 1985 when he shattered Ty Cobb's all-time base hit record. Rose admits he likes to gamble, often seen betting on horses at this Kentucky racetrack.
Pete's out here usually 2-3 times a week.
Rose's loyal fans are sticking by him.
I have a feeling, I just may be wrong, but I have a feeling that some kind of a personal vendetta that somebody's trying to settle against Pete Rose.
Yeah, it's personal life, as long as it's not involved with baseball.
The commissioner's office may have more to say about Pete Rose tomorrow. If Rose's gambling involved Major League Baseball games, today's 7-2 victory over the St. Louis Cardinals could be his last in any baseball uniform. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Plant City, Florida.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, Labor Secretary Elizabeth Dole on the minimum wage debate.
Also, tomorrow from Paris, the latest fashions on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.